peace. Ukraine wants peace. US wants peace. We have to sit down with Trump, and that is 100%. First and foremost, number one. Moreover, he told me on the phone that he is waiting for us to meet, and there will be an official visit, and my visit would be the first or one of the first to him, and for him.
What are these? 660S.
This topic is very important. I know that he has his own matters, American issues, I understand. I heard his election program, but regarding international affairs, I think our issue is one of the most pressing issues for President Trump. Therefore, I believe very much, I trust his words, and I hope we will meet again. We need to prepare. We have many plans to build on, and they exist, and they are supported by many countries. But we need...
The big issue right now is that, like, again, what does the U.S. even stand for? Like, we don't even have a coherent vision that we present to the world. Like, what does it even mean? For, like, we just don't, yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
His vision. He needs to look at all these details, but his vision, please. Because he can stop Putin, because Putin is afraid of him. That's a fact. But Trump...
Did you not make the exact opposite argument towards Palestinians that they need to look for a solution, peace rather than justice? Absolutely not. That has never been my argument. And if you go and you look at any of the conversations I've had with people, I've always said that painful concessions need to be made on both sides of that disagreement. I have always said that.
Well, here's a question. I think I'll agree with Cenk too. The change is not complicated. It's painful. That's the issue. I don't know if Cenk realizes it, but what he said earlier about Palestinians giving up the right of return, that is a painful concession. That has to be matched on the Israeli side with a painful concession, like a big withdrawal from the West Bank, like 500,000 settlers, like gone, or part of the new Palestinian state. So like if one side is willing to make a painful concession, then the other side should be. And I think that's the big issue.
I've never said that just one side needs to make a big concession on this ever. That is not true.
Is a president of a democratic country, and he does not come for life. He is not Putin. He will not come for 25 years. He will come for his term. Please tell me. Well, for example, he came for 4 years. And for the 5th year, Putin came with a war. Will it make Trump feel better that there was no war during his time and that Ukraine was destroyed after him? Why destroyed? Putin is whoever, a killer whoever, but not a fool. He will be prepared. He knows all mistakes. He understands how we defeated his army after the invasion began. He realized that this was not a Soviet war and that this would not happen with us. He will prepare. He will let everything into arms production. He will have lots of weapons, and there will be a very large army. And you think that after such humiliation, 4 years without a war, he did not finish us. He will return and fight only against Ukraine?
Do you think that the Canada annexation shit Trump keeps talking about is real or just a negotiating tactic? It's not real, but it's also not a negotiation tactic. None of these things that Trump is saying is a negotiating tactic. For some reason, people are just like buying that because like conservatives invented that rumor. Trump isn't even negotiating for anything. He has no idea what he's even asking for. He's just an idiot.
He will destroy everything around. And if you say there is a risk that President Trump, will withdraw from NATO, for example, this is a decision of the United States. I'm simply saying that if it does, Putin will destroy Europe.
Yep.
Calculate the size of army in Europe. It's just that I say it for a reason. Do the calculation. Why did Hitler conquer all of Europe then? Almost. Just count, remember, his armies of millions. Calculate what Europe has. What are the largest armies? We have the largest army. The Ukrainian army is the largest in Europe. The second place after us is 4 times smaller than us.
France.
Yes. 200,000? I think the French have about 200,000. We have 980.
So this powerful coalition of European nations.
That will not be enough.
Yes, it's not going to be enough. But you're a smart man. There's a lot of ideas. Partnerships with Global South, India, Middle East, Saudi Arabia, economic partnerships, political partnerships. It all protects you.
First of all, look at one example.
Can't you say that Ukraine has to make a painful concession to Russia in order to get peace in the same way? They shouldn't have to, though. It's different. The Palestinian-Israeli situation is legitimately incredibly convoluted in terms of like what borders even exist for what reasons or for what. The Ukrainian borders were incredibly clear and everybody agreed to them. There were already like completely solidified agreements from all parties on what the Ukrainian borders were. It's not the same.
North Korea. Just look at this example. 12,000 has arrived. Today, 3,800 killed or wounded. They can bring more. 30, 40,000. Or maybe 500. They can bring many people. Why? Because they have order, autocracy, and everything. Can Europe bring people together? No. Will Europe be able to build an army consisting of 2 to 3 million people? No, Europe will not want to do this. And for what? We definitely don't want a world war with you. There is no such purpose. There is no such purpose as gathering everyone. We do not want any war. We want to stop the Russians. And they invite North Korean soldiers. Invited. Their faces are burned. They themselves burn their faces. Those who cannot escape, injured or killed. There's a video. Everything I'm telling you, there is evidence of this. So that they are not recognizable, right? It means, what does it mean? It's out of values which share Europe. Europe counts. It means that those guys, they don't count. Rahuyut, it's count, yes? They don't count the number of people. That is the answer. Can they move more? Yes. Can they move dozens of thousands? Yes, because we see what they have.
Why do you think North Koreans being involved did not trigger greater support from NATO? Because they're not Ukraine's not a NATO country. It doesn't matter what happens there. There's no NATO anything.
Last year, for example, Europe gave us 1 million artillery rounds. We produced a lot ourselves, but they gave us initiative. It was initiative, 1 million artillery rounds, and of 155 and etc. We produced more. But North Korea gave Putin 3.7, just gave him. So he also has a deficit for today. It means he needs what? He needs time.
But the number of soldiers,
yes,
and the number of artillery rounds is not everything.
Can you elaborate on Russia trying to join NATO in the 90s? Why were they rejected if it's voluntary? I don't believe Russia was ever rejected from NATO. I think that they wanted like an expedited, I don't know, I haven't studied like the history here, so I can't give like a better or more concise answer, but I believe that Russia basically wanted like a special invite or like an expedited path to or ascension to NATO membership, and NATO just doesn't work that way. I don't know if Russia would have ever truly joined NATO, or if that was just like posturing. I'm not sure. I don't know.
As you've said, let's say Donald Trump guarantees security for 4 years. You can form partnerships with India, with Saudi Arabia, that enforce punishment, the stick, on oil prices, for example, if any aggressive action is taken. You can actually even build, I've met a lot of incredible Ukrainian tech people, IT people. You can build great companies that form partnerships with the United States, that form partnerships with China. And that is a big leverage against aggression of however many million artillery rounds. And that, a sheet of paper, you don't need a sheet of paper of protection.
That's you. Well, when you speak
In English.
in English, yeah, you don't even need answers, because when now we're talking, you already answered on all the questions. The first one is that during this time, you need just cooperation, a lot of money for this military industry. In Ukraine or in Europe, with India, Saudi Arabia, Saudi, and the United States, you need a lot of money. So the question is where you will get it. So my answer was to Trump. I said, this is one of the security guarantees. Take 300 billions of frozen Russian assets. We will take it. Take money, what we need for our interior production, and we will buy all the weapons from the United States. We don't need gifts from the United States. It will be very good for your industry. For the United States, we will put money there, Russian money. Not Ukrainian, not European, Russian money, Russian assets. They have to pay for this. We will put it and we will make it. This is one of security guarantees? Yes, of course. Because this is a military guarantee, yes. But then the second you said, that energy price and a lot of sanctions on products and the Russian shadow fleet and etc. That is the second answer we spoke about before. Yes, put more sanctions on them. More sanctions. It's okay. Not
okay.
to take off sanctions.
It's okay with you, but it's not going to be okay with the president of Russia.
Yes, but I'm not thinking how it will be very good for him. He's still a killer.
I understand, but unfortunately, the reality is that a compromise is needed in order to reach an
So
agreement.
in your understanding, the fact that he is in jailed after all the murders, he is not in jail assuming all the murders, and no one in the world is able to put him in his place, send him to prison. Do you think this is a small compromise?
This is not a small compromise, and to forgive him will not be a small
To
compromise.
forgive, no one will forgive. This is absolutely impossible to forgive him. We cannot get into the head and soul of a person who lost their family. Nobody never will accept this. Absolutely impossible. I don't know, do you have children?
No, not yet,
Okay.
but I would like to.
Yes. God bless. And this is the most important thing in life. And they simply took away the most precious thing from you, will you ask? Who ruined your life before going to rip their head off? I'm just curious. They took your child away. Are you going to ask who did this? And they will answer that dude did this. You will say, oh, well, then there are no questions. No, you will go fucking hell and bite their head off. And it will be fair. Can murderers be forgiven? That's why you make security guarantees. What I told you for those who are here and what we control and what will not happen. And that those who lost, we will never forget in a matter of time. But when you gave us NATO, I just said, this means that after a while, everything I said about NATO, after a while, Ukraine will not go against Russia. And Russia will not go against Ukraine because you are in NATO. I am just saying, is not that a compromise? So NATO is a compromise. This is not just a security guarantee, in my opinion. Look, when rockets were attacking Israel,
Zelensky should, I don't know how familiar Zelensky is with Lex's platform, but Zelensky should ask, what is the Russian compromise? What does Russia have to compromise on if Ukraine is not a NATO? So Russia invades, they get our territory. Putin's not prosecuted for anything. They have all the sanctions are lifted. What is the compromise on the Russian end? What are they compromising on?
Israel. And Israel is not in NATO. NATO countries' aircrafts were deployed. Air defense. The air defense worked. Operated by different Middle Eastern countries. These are also security guarantees. And by the way, Israel has nuclear weapons.
Although the security guarantees were easier for Israel because they weren't being attacked by nuclear powers, unfortunately, right? Yet. So that's why we could deploy that defense there. I don't know what it looks like if Iran actually does get nuclear weapons.
So why do they need NATO when in fact they have more than NATO has? The American, British, and French aviation stepped in. There was ADA. I don't remember from Jordan. Listen, thousands of missiles were shot down that way. This is, what is this? So it's a guarantee of safety. It's just that it's not called NATO. Is some Uncle Vova irritated by the word NATO? There's a problem with the word. And I think he's simply irritated by people who are alive and living here.
If you believe this, it will be very difficult to negotiate. If you think that the president of a country is completely crazy, it is really hard to come to an agreement with him.
He didn't say that Putin was crazy. He never said Putin was crazy, just that he was a killer, that Putin is going after things that are in his interest. Putin's not crazy at all. I think Putin is acting incredibly rationally. Just because people might be evil doesn't mean they're random or crazy, right? Putin is responding predictably to a predictable environment laid out before him. As long as Putin can act without obstruction in this manner towards Ukraine, he will continue to act without obstruction in this manner towards Ukraine. That's what the point of security guarantees are, is to make you reconsider your position because now you're weighing different consequences that weren't there before.
You have to look at him as a serious person who loves his country and loves the people in his country. And he
Oh, this is so cringe. What does invading my country have to do with loving yours, bro? If you love your country and you love your people so much, why do you keep sending your young men here to fucking die? Like, you love Russia and you're showing that by sending young Russian children to die in Ukrainian ditches? That's love for your country?
You have to look at him as a serious person who loves his country and loves the people in his country. And he conducts, yes, destructive military
Who are
actions.
you talking about now? Who loves his country?
Putin. Do you think he doesn't love his country?
Why is
No.
he sending his...
What is his country? He happened to consider Ukraine his country. What is
Yeah.
his country? Explain it. Tomorrow he will say that it's America. No pity for the Chechens? Do they look like Russians?
True.
Do they speak Russian? Of course. Of course they learn in schools, like anywhere there's been Russification. Who are the Chechens? A different people. Another faith, other people, another language, a million. Eliminated. And eliminated how? How did he kill them? With love? I know, fuck. By hugging. In Ukrainian, as we say, strangling by hugging. I love you so much. I love you so much that I want to kill you. That's his love. And that's not love. You're mistaken. He does not love his people. He loves his inner circle. It's only a small part of the people. He doesn't love them.
True.
Why? I'll explain.
Counter. Let's hear what's the Lex counter to that? What's the Lex counter to that?
You cannot send your people to another land to die, knowing that they will die. Children, my daughter, she is 20 years old. For me, this is a child. She's already an adult, of course. But she is a child. The boys he sends are 18 years old. 18 years old. They are children. He sends them. It's not that fascists came to his land and he needs to defend it.
True.
He came to ours and he sent them. Chechnya, he sent them. Syria, he sent them. Africa, he sent them. Georgia, he sent them. Moldova, Transnistria, that was before him. Fine, we can leave that aside. He has enough sins of his own.
This guy has all the... Good job. You can tell that Zelensky's been watching the Destiny streams. Hell yeah.
And then there's Ukraine, the largest part. 780,000. 788,000 killed or wounded Russians. He calls them all Russians, even those who don't know how to speak Russian. On his territory of Russia, everything they've enslaved. Yes, proud Varangians. So I wonder, is that love? What love is this? And for what? Does he love his people? No. Does he love his land? His country is bigger than America. How much land do you need? America is huge. America is simply an outstanding country. Outstanding country. Russia is bigger. Well, just bigger. So ask yourself, does he love them? What is he doing? And what does he love? Do you think he's been everywhere in his Russia? It's impossible to get around it. He hasn't been everywhere. He just hasn't.
Well, I believe that Donald Trump loves America, and I don't think he has been
I'm
to
sure.
every single American city.
No. I saw his rallies. So many
Yes.
rallies. No, let's be honest. Let's be honest. He had it and I saw it, and it's very difficult. He's not 18. Yes, but he's strong. And this is his will. Everywhere where the war is. I'm sure. I pray to God it never will be on your land, yes, and I'm sure that it will not be. But I'm sure that if you have in some region the problems, how to say earthquake, hurricane, you have it all. Well, I'm sure that President Trump would be there. After 1 day, 2 or 3 days, I don't know the security of all these things, but he will be. Otherwise, how will people look at him? Yes, of course he will. Of course. The same about me. I'm not comparing myself with him. I'm just, where it is difficult for people, I have to come. The next question is very simple. Region. Kursk region. The operation there. Was Putin in Kursk during 4 months? No.
Listen, I have tremendous respect for you, admiration for many reasons, one of which is
Okay, why am I having an autism moment? I don't if you're on a date with somebody, okay, you're trying to rizz up a girl or you're trying to rizz up a guy, one of the keys to having a good conversation is to make it not sound like an interview. You are listening to the things that they're saying and you're identifying the interesting points and you're asking them a question to further that part of the conversation that they've revealed about themselves, right? What did you, like, what's your job? Oh, I'm a chemistry researcher. Oh, you're a chemistry researcher. Did you play any sports in high school? I guess I did volleyball because my mom said that she really wanted me to be a collegiate volleyball athlete before she died. Oh, your mom? Oh, what kind of car do you drive? Like, if you're having a conversation with somebody like this and you're just like moving down, it feels like a list of questions and you're not engaging on like anything they're saying. It's not a real conversation. You have to like respond to what is being said. I feel like, I don't know if Lex has responded to a single thing that Zelenskyy has said so far. It feels like we're just running down a list of questions. I super don't understand the style of engagement. It's very, 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 very weird.
Was Putin in Kursk during 4 months? No.
Listen, I have tremendous respect for you, admiration for many reasons, one of which is you stayed in Kyiv, and another one is that you visit the front, and you talk to the soldiers in the front, and you talk to people all across Ukraine. Absolutely, tremendous respect for that. So,
and Zelenskyy is a smart guy who I said before, like everything he's saying, he's very information dense, and he's a smart dude, and he seems like he is he has a, I hate using EQ or emotionally intelligent or whatever. I don't even know if that's real. But he seems like he could have a conversation and he's just not getting it at all here. Has Zelenskyy done any other big English speaking shows with anybody? Fuck. If we went to Ukraine, what are the chances? I feel like it'd be low to none. I wonder how Lex got this topic.
and not enough people say that, I had a conversation with Tucker Carlson, for example, and, I said that you're a hero for staying in Kyiv. And he said, well, he just did a thing that every leader should do.
God, what a fucking loser. God, I hate this fucking dude. Tucker, not Lex. The conversation, I would have expected this, maybe not, actually no, because I have a much higher opinion of Zelenskyy than I do of fucking Netanyahu. The conversation with Netanyahu was incredibly, like, you could tell, like, I'm not as critical for Lex's conversation with Netanyahu, a little bit because of what he told me about it and how that would go and the restrictions he had on him. But like, it's very obvious even in watching this conversation that Netanyahu very clearly had a lot of restrictions on what Lex could ask and where that conversation could go. It was very, very, very obvious that Netanyahu is viewing this opportunity as to do basically propaganda kind of, and Lex is trying to operate within that environment, which is very challenging. And I have sympathy for Lex here. But Zelensky seems so much more open. A 3-hour conversation. Bro, has any world, it kind of sounds silly, but has any world leader ever in the history of all the world done like a 2.5-hour conversation on like a long form show like that? Like, has this like ever happened ever? Any current world leader ever? Donald Trump? How long was Trump's Joe Rogan appearance? Trump, Joe Rogan. Oh, okay, no. Okay, Trump has. Besides Trump?
I said that you're a hero for staying in Kiev. And he said, well, he just did a thing that every leader should do. But I think not enough leaders do the thing that every leader should do.
Oh my God, that was such a charitable interpretation of how many leaders at all would do this? Like, okay.
So, tremendous respect. And I agree with you totally. Yes, a leader should go to the front of a war. That said, America has waged wars all across the world. That has the war in Afghanistan and Iraq cost $9 trillion and killed over 1 million people. War is hell, and just because war is waged in terrible ways that it is, does not mean the leader does not love their country. But
like, it's so much removing of agency. Like, it's not just that war just happens to be bad. There is one man making the decision to wage this war. This is not happening by accident. This is not a random event that is inevitably occurring and must have occurred. Like, this is not the case. And I hate it when he refers to it like this.
I take your point. I once again have a dream that even if there's hate, that you sit down with Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin and you find a way to peace. Let me ask you a question.
What do you think? Will there ever be a day when the Ukrainian people
To peace. Let me ask you a question.
Like, what the fuck, man? What the fuck, dude? Really? What? He's like, what the fuck? What? Bro.
What do you think? Will there ever be a day when the Ukrainian people forgive the Russian people?
Bro, they're still at war. They're still being invaded. This is like a dude crawling out of the gas chamber. It's like, hey, buddy, before you pass out here, okay? You think the Jews and the Germans will ever get along again? Bro!
And both peoples will travel back and forth again.
Like, fuck, should I have been watching his facial expressions more? Have they been?
What do you think? Will there ever be a day when the Ukrainian people forgive the Russian people and
What?
both peoples will travel back and forth again and marry each other, rekindle and form friendships? Will there be such a time in the future?
I think history has long answered this question.
Yes.
I don't know how it will be for us.
It'll
It
happen
will be in the
eventually,
future.
but
Without a doubt, history has shown this time. And again, after every devastating war, one generation, one country recognizes that it was an aggressor, and it comes to realize this is impossible to forgive. This is precisely the kind of education they've had in Germany for many years, even though these children had nothing to do with it. It was their grandfathers who participated, and not all of them were participants of Nazi Germany's war essentially against the world. Yes. And against life. And therefore, they're still apologizing. Apologizing is not easy. They know that they were the aggressors. They were guilty. They do not look for compromise in history. Compromise in itself buys time. And they understand this. There are convicted murderers, condemned both historically and by their own people. Reparations have been paid, and security guarantees have been established, by the way, and all this is done. And when all this is done and recognized, in any case, people develop relations with each other. That's clear, but it can only happen the way it always has in history. Russia will have to apologize. It will. This will happen because they are guilty. They are guilty. And as I told you, the guilty are different. Both those who participated and those who remain silent, because silence is also about participating,
True.
in my opinion.
Especially when you have the capability to act, right? Remember what it means when you lack the will to act? It makes it your fault too. We learned this. No, it wasn't The Dark Knight. It was when we learned it was his father's fault. No, not Batman. Fuck me, I don't remember the movie. When Liam Neeson's blamed Bruce's father for failing to act to save his family?
Can I ask about Donald Trump? We've already mentioned him a lot, but let's focus there.
Batman
What do you
Begins.
admire? What do you respect about Donald Trump?
Why even ask? Why even ask? What a question. Why?
And also maybe
Listen, I will give a lot. And I'll say this, I'll put this on the record right now so that I can't back away from it or anything else. Okay. I'll give a lot of respect to Lex if he asks similar questions to Putin. Like, and if he presses him as hard as he's pressing Zelenskyy here, why are you guys still fighting? Why won't you, settle for peace? Why are you guys instigating all this?
maybe why do you think?
Do you think Zelenskyy loves his people? Well, no, that's not even fair because Russia's in the aggressor position. So Putin can say all those things and still seem magnanimous, even when it's like propaganda.
What do you admire? What do you respect about Donald Trump? And also maybe why do you think he won overwhelmingly the election in 2024? That American people chose him.
He was stronger. He was much more stronger than Kamala Harris, Biden first, and then Kamala Harris. Yes, he showed that he can intellectually and physically. It was an important point to show that if you want to have a strong country, you have to be strong, and he was strong. And this number of rallies, what I said, is not a simple thing. He showed that he can. He is strong. So he doesn't have any questions with his, this age and etc. Nothing. He is young. He is young here, and his brains work. So I think it's important, very important. And of course, a lot of interior questions. I understand the prices and etc. Economic questions, and the questions of, you have the questions with other things.
Immigration, yeah.
A lot of things. I understand. So maybe he answered all.
Any idea why the glaze? Because having favorability with the American leader is probably the most important thing for the future of your country. What do you mean?
On those questions which people had.
One of the questions
That he will finish the war.
that he will finish the war.
Yeah, for me, this is the main question. But I said that for him, he's the president of the United States. For him, his priority is his questions in the United States, and I understand and I respect it. But the second he was speaking about the world, yes, he said that he will finish the war. And I hope very much, because I think that our people really support his idea. And that's why I said it is for me. It's very, very important to have enough people around him who will have connections with him with the right things. For me, the truth is very right things. What's going on really on the battlefield? What's going on really with Putin and Russia? What he really wants. And that is just to have it. Before any decision, you have to be at the same level of information. And we need him to know everything from us, from you, from people in Ukraine, from people around who are really afraid that Putin doesn't want to stop the war, afraid that he will come back with his aggression.
So first of all, I should mention that
What do you think Zelenskyy truly lies on Trump v. Biden? That's a really hard one. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if Zelenskyy himself actually slightly favored Trump because he felt like Biden could have helped more. But it also wouldn't surprise me if Zelenskyy didn't like Trump because he felt like the Republicans were the ones holding up aid to Ukraine. It also wouldn't surprise me if Zelenskyy thought that Trump was better because Trump could just pivot randomly on Ukraine and be harder. I could see it going either way. I truly have no idea. But I don't even know if Trump is better for Ukraine than Kamala would have been. I truly don't know. I don't, because Trump can literally do fucking anything. And that's not a compliment the way the dipshit maggots pretend it is. Like, oh, Trump's a wild card, so he could do anything. That's not good. You shouldn't be chaotic when you're the leader of the free world. But it's hard to say what could happen.
that our conversation today will be translated and dubbed into Ukrainian, English, Russian, other languages, Spanish. So you're in your voice. So there are great guys originally from Poland. It's a company called 11 Labs. They've trained an AI. Artificial intelligence sounds truly remarkable in your voice. You have the freedom to speak in any language you choose, but no matter what, you will always find yourself returning to speaking in Ukrainian. That is, when you talk about Donald Trump, you can do it in Ukrainian or Russian.
Everybody understands.
Everybody understands. But you said that there's some things about the war that maybe Americans don't understand. So we talked about Putin. We talked about the security guarantees, but the reality of war, what's happening on the ground, what do you think that people should understand?
First of all, they have to understand the idea of Putin's war. It is very important for him. I consider this process. I think it is very important for him not to give Ukraine independence. To prevent Ukraine from developing as an independent country, for him, influence on Ukraine cannot be lost. And for him it is, I think for him, this is such a goal in this last mile, and certainly for him, the last mile and of his political life.
Why do you people like Lex so much charity? This interview is weird to say the least. If it were any other conflict, this entire premise would be totally insane. If they interviewed the Polish president about Hitler in 1942, it would feel like this one does. Yeah, but I mean, like we've already shown, I think we've demonstrated now, at least in the US, like what would happen if you were around when Hitler was rising to power, whatever. Like, yeah, there's a lot of people that would support him. In the US, we've seen that at least half the country would probably support him. So I mean, like, that's just the world that we're in, right? Unfortunately.
And I think that this is the goal for him. The second story, I do not want to talk about these banalities, that he wants to return all the territories of the Soviet Union, influence over them. He does this little by little. I just don't want to, people need to know details. For example, Georgia, which was headed towards the EU and NATO, completely turns towards Russia, regardless of the fact that they have frozen conflicts. They have in Abkhazia what we have with Donbass, which is controlled by militant rebels. Abkhazia is not developing, it's just a very beautiful part of Georgia that has died. And
Destiny, acknowledge that this is unacceptable. Well, yeah, I don't think you should be doing that. It's unacceptable, of course. Do you buy into the idea that once Trump gets in, he'll magically put an end to all the major conflicts? Every Republican in my life firmly believes that come January 20th, Russia and Ukraine will be over. No, Trump didn't put an end to any conflicts. That's just a fiction that for some reason Trump is able to tell the world, or I'm sorry, able to tell the U.S. The whole, like, there were no wars under Trump. That's just not true. That's just a lie. It's just completely not true. There were more wars under Trump than there were. I'm pretty sure the U.S. was participating in more conflict under Trump than they were under Biden. But we just don't believe that for some reason. I don't know. They're just allowed to say whatever. Like, I don't know what to say. Name three. Name three what? We were participating in the Saudi coalition against Yemen under Trump pretty heavily. He even obfuscated the amount of drone strikes that were happening there. I think Biden pulled us completely out of that fight. We're no longer participating there. We had a much more active military presence in the Middle East. Now, Trump says that was to fight ISIS. Sure, fine, but we were still there. And part of our pullout there, as disastrous as Afghanistan might have been, part of our pullout there was pulling out and abandoning all of our Kurdish allies and not being able to control Turkey at all when it came to, fighting against them. In Syria, we did a massive bombing campaign against attacking Wagner Group people who were Russian soldiers, basically, or a Russian merc group. In Afghanistan, we had lost 40 or 50 Americans during the entirety of Trump's presidency in Afghanistan. He surrendered to the Taliban, but he kicked that can down the road to Biden's administration. We bombed a Syrian airport after Syrian gassed their people. What else? Yeah, there's other stuff that Trump wasn't immediately involved in, that the U.S. wasn't involved in, but you had the Iran attack on Saudi Arabia. You had the border riots going on for a year in Israel. The IRGC was still doing foreign stuff. We did an assassination in Iraq. Like there was way more military conflict and shit that the U.S. was directly involved in under Trump than under Biden. So it's just so weird that aren't these mostly, if not all, inherited wars? Sure, you can call them inherited if you want, but to say that there was no war under Trump is just stupid. It's just not true. It was just stupid.
And if you have the opportunity, then go there someday. You will understand. It simply died because Putin wanted to. He wanted not to allow them to develop because a frozen conflict means that you will not be accepted in the EU and certainly will not be accepted into NATO. Because right now, yes, they do not take you because of a frozen conflict. And this is what Putin did. It's very important for him not to lose this influence. That is, he turned back Georgia, young people, students, everyone leaves.
Do you have a steel man for the pro-Russian position? I just truly don't see it. Siding with Ukraine in this conflict seems like such a no-brainer. On the Russian side of things, I mean, I think Russia sees itself almost like America in terms of like their position on the world stage, although it's a tad delusional, but it feels like Russia sees itself as a world power that's still desperately vying for being treated as a world superpower. The idea that China is replacing Russian influence, the idea that America no longer cares about Russia, Russia's economy is just not that great compared to where it could be. Like Western Europe even has like left Russia behind, and now Eastern Europe maybe is like starting to leave Russia behind. Russia wants to exert control over people near it because they want to rebuild what they see as like a fallen empire, basically. And Ukraine was just basically another building block in that empire that was now slipping away when Ukraine was looking to turn further towards, like trading with the European Union. So I think that Russia just sees its influence and grasp on the world slipping away. They saw an opportunity with Ukraine after the expulsion of Yanukovych in 2014 to come in and militarily exert some influence, kind of like they do over Belarus. But I mean, that's the steel man. It's just that they're like trying not to fade away into irrelevance, basically.
And this is a fact. Georgia is quite small. And they will leave. They want to live in Europe. They want to develop. Somebody in the United States, somebody in Europe, somebody in the EU, somebody in Britain. He will now fight for the Moldovan parliament. This is his second step. You will see in April what happens. You will see, he will start turning Moldova away from Europe. Although they want to go there, he does not care. There will be a pro-Russian party, and they will do something with the current president because she has won the elections. She is pro-European, but he will turn this back. The next steps are completely clear. He will do everything wherever he has lost influence, where there was influence of the Soviet Union. He'll turn it back as much as possible. And we understand at what price. You have seen Syria. You saw these tortures, what we saw in Bucha, what we saw everywhere we came, and where our territories were occupied. In Syria.
They should have become European after 91. I can't speak to this because I don't read Dugin or any Russian philosophy or know too much. But like, I don't think Russia wants to see itself as part of Europe. You have to understand that for 50 years, Russia saw themselves as like an equal to Europe, an equal to everything in the East, or greater than that, and greater than all of that, actually, and then an equal to the United States of America. So the idea that they would just be subsumed into or assimilated by Europe, my imagination would be that is like philosophically, nationalistically humiliating, that we're going to just be another one of the European countries. Like we're supposed to, that would be the feeling that I would have, but I don't know 100%. Like Russia has a rich history of being like an empire, like a huge country, an empire country. Like there were the czars, there were the revolutions, they were like the bedrock of like socialism and communism and alternative, like opposition to the West. Like Russia just has such a rich, powerful history that it almost feels like you're telling Russians to become like, how we talk about like the Romans and the Greeks, and then we look at like Greece. Like that's probably, I would imagine that's what Russia, you want us to be like Greece? Like that's what we're going to be? That is a really like abstracted feelings I have, but I don't have a super good understanding of like the Russian, that's just how it feels. But
these tortures, what we saw in Bucha, what we saw everywhere we came, and where our territories were occupied. In Syria, the same happened. There were 1,000 people there, and you have seen it. Scientists were found, doctors were found. It is clear that any people are capable of generating their own opinion, show their skills, develop society. Everyone who can express an opinion, everyone who can shape the independence and maturity of society, such people are not needed. And he wants to.
That wasn't a steelman at all. It's just a slightly more rational justification. What would be an argument that would sound reasonable in the sense of being in the right with attacking Ukraine? It's what I just said. What do you mean? That if Ukraine slipped away and became a further puppet of the West, because Russia views everybody as a puppet one way or another, that Russia they'd lose access to the Black Sea, they wouldn't be allowed in Sevastopol anymore, Russia's ability to project force to anywhere in the world would be even increasingly threatened, that an antagonistic an antagonistic enemy on its borders would threaten the political stability and maybe even the economic stability of both Belarus and Russia. It would foment things like color revolutions or whatever on the border. Like, I don't know, just all these negative things. They just want to, they feel like they need to be in control of things more. It's like an abusive partner, right? Where the abusive partner wants to maintain control of you because as soon as you have a little bit of freedom, you're going to walk away. That doesn't sound like a good statement, but it's, yeah.
This in Ukraine. And therefore, everyone should understand that Ukraine is like a large wall. From that, Europe, and if, God willing, President Trump does not withdraw from NATO. Because again, I believe that this is the biggest risk. I think 2 steps.
He probably wants to steelman on why they deserve that control. Oh, I don't know if you could ever steelman that. That's almost impossible because they've agreed to so much like concrete contractual. I think you would have to start buying into conspiracies. I don't think Ukraine gave them a good reason to. I don't even know how you could steelman that.
2 steps that Putin would like to see is a weak NATO. And this without Trump, and a weak Ukraine, which cannot survive on the battlefield, simply cannot survive, and prevent me from building a strong relationship with Trump. I think these 2 steps, leaving NATO and Ukraine's weakness, will lead to a large-scale war, which Putin will wage on all the territories of that Europe, post-Soviet Europe, Soviet.
Wait, that argument isn't palatable to logical people, though. We can't just invade people because we are paranoid. I'm also confused what Russian position could sound justified. Well, you can do a lot of things when you're afraid or paranoid. Am I making this up? Or wasn't it illegal at one point in time in the United States to be a communist? I know that we did the McCarthyism where we accused people of being foreign spies and everything, but if it wasn't illegal in like de jure, then it felt illegal de facto, that there were a lot of penalties for having like certain political opinions in the United States. We were paranoid about countries surrounding us as well, like becoming communist countries, right? We fought in Korea, we fought in Vietnam. Those aren't around us, but I mean, we were very big in intervening in South American and Central American political institutions and governments and shit. Like, so I mean, like we did a lot of this as well, but
Europe, not post-Soviet, but post-World War II period. That is Soviet Europe, Soviet-era Europe. In order to...
I mean, we locked up all of our Asian people. I don't think it was just the Japanese, right? For the internment camps. Wasn't a lot of Asian people as well during World War II because we were afraid of them turning on us or being spies or whatever the fuck else too. So,
but post-World War II period, that is Soviet Europe, Soviet-era Europe. In order to completely control everything there. This is what he will do. And besides this will happen in any case. Even if the US is thinking about leaving NATO. This war will affect the United States because North Korea is the first sign. North Korean skills, North Korean knowledge, which they are now gaining from this war. These include mastering new technologies, large-scale drones, missiles, how it works.
fuck. Wait, hold on 1 second. Let me hold on 1 second. Do you think that Trump agreeing to leave NATO would change Putin's position on Ukraine joining NATO? So much of NATO's powers. There is no such thing. The United States can never leave NATO. It's not possible. What can happen is NATO can cease to exist. If the United States leaves NATO, then NATO just ceases to exist. There is no NATO, I don't think, without the United States. It doesn't make any sense. There could be like a NATO in theory without the US, but like in practice, like it would just be such an unbelievable blow to the confidence of, it just wouldn't. Yeah. Hold on, I'll be back in a second.